Okay, so have you ever thought that maybe, just maybe, most people who say they love you don't actually love you? They just tolerate you? It's kind of brutal, I know, but think about it. How often have you twisted yourself into a pretzel to get someone to like you, only to find out later that they were just putting up with you because it was easy? It's a tough pill to swallow, but it makes you think about what it really means to be loved and respected. We're taught that if we're nice and sweet and always there for people, they'll love us. But real love isn't always like that. It can change depending on whether you keep being the nice person they want you to be. As soon as you disagree or say no or set a boundary, suddenly that love disappears. We grow up believing that if we're kind enough, accommodating enough, if we just smile in the right moments or laugh at the right jokes, everyone will love us. But genuine love is often fickle, dependent on whether you keep being that nice version of yourself they want. As soon as you break the mold, say no, or set a boundary, watch how quickly that so-called love evaporates. It's almost like people like the nice, convenient you, not the real you. Now, am I saying you should turn cold and harsh? Absolutely not. But I am saying that kindness alone won't save you from betrayal. In many cases, kindness makes you more vulnerable. Because when you're too soft, you invite people to test your limits. That's just how the world works. People want to see how far they can push. So, being kind is great, right? But hold up, there's a flip side. What happens when being too nice actually backfires? Let's dive into how kindness can turn into a tricky situation you might want to avoid. Kindness is beautiful, right? It's the glue of society. But when people see you as the one who never pushes back, guess what? They'll keep taking until you have nothing left to give. It doesn't make them evil. It's just human nature. We're all trying to get our needs met, sometimes at the expense of someone else's comfort. At some point, you have to ask, who's looking out for me? Because if you're always the one giving, you might be building a reputation as the nice friend, the easy boss, or the understanding partner. And that feels good until it doesn't. One day you wake up and realize people aren't returning that same compassion. That's when the hurt sets in, and you start questioning whether your approach to people was flawed from the beginning. The scary part is that love can vanish in an instant. One argument, one moment of inconvenience, and all that warmth disappears. But fear? Fear tends to stick around. When someone fears the consequences of crossing you, they think twice. They measure their words and actions more carefully. And that fear often translates into a form of respect, one that doesn't evaporate the moment you stop being pleasant. Heads up, things are about to get interesting. We're diving into the real differences between decisions made out of love and those driven by fear. Prepare for a fresh perspective. All right, let's talk about the whole loved versus feared thing for a second. You know that classic Machiavelli question? Sure, everyone wants to be liked and admired, but let's be real, people are wishy-washy. One minute they're your biggest fans, the next, not so much. That makes relying solely on being loved kind of shaky. Fear, though? That's a bit more reliable in terms of getting stuff done. People tend to avoid doing things that might get them in trouble. We're not talking about being a dictator here, just setting clear rules and making sure there are consequences when they're broken. Still, going full fear mode isn't the answer either. That just makes people resentful and likely to rebel. What you really need is a mix of fear and respect. Respect comes from actually being good at what you do, being fair, and genuinely caring about the people you're leading. When people respect you, they're more likely to follow your lead, even if they don't always see eye to eye with you. Bottom line, finding that sweet spot between being respected and having a little bit of "don't mess with me" is key. It all depends on the situation and who you're dealing with. You gotta be able to read the room and adjust your style as needed. Love would be nice, but sometimes a touch of fear is just what you need to keep things on track. Even if this perspective feels harsh, it's the reason powerful leaders throughout history often valued respect over being liked. They knew human nature. Betrayal comes easily when there's no real deterrent. But if the consequences for betrayal are clear, people might think twice before they act. Keep watching, because up next, we're going back in time to see how entire empires rose and fell on this very principle. Okay, history's shown us a pretty clear trend. Leaders who are obsessed with being universally loved, they often end up losing power, sometimes in pretty dramatic ways. It's kind of a natural issue, honestly. Trying to keep everyone happy is just impossible. The more they push for everyone to adore them, the weaker their position gets. This need for everyone's approval can cause a lot of problems. Leaders might make weak compromises just to avoid upsetting anyone, which ends up ticking off their actual supporters and emboldening those against them. They might get too scared to make tough calls, worrying about who they'll anger. All this hesitation makes them look weak, and they lose even more support. Also, trying too hard for everyone's love can blind leaders to how things really are. They start thinking every disagreement can be solved with a nice chat, ignoring the fact that power struggles and self-interest play a big part. This means they might underestimate threats and not take action when they should. Bottom line, trying to be universally loved is a dead end. You can't make everyone happy, and trying usually backfires. Leaders who try to be everyone's pal end up losing the respect and loyalty they had in the first place. Real leadership is about making the hard choices, even if they're unpopular. It means sticking to what you believe in, even when people disagree. And it means accepting that you're not going to please everyone all the time. Leaders who get this are way more likely to do well than those chasing after this impossible dream of universal love. Meanwhile, leaders who commanded respect, sometimes through methods we'd call severe, often stayed in power much longer. There's a controversial edge to this, no doubt. We like to believe in a world where good always wins and kindness is always rewarded. But real life doesn't always follow fairy tale rules. It's not just old monarchs or dictators either. In modern times, think of how many public figures, celebrities, or CEOs get canceled overnight for slipping off the pedestal of public affection. That affection can be dangerously fragile. One misstep, and that wave of love can turn into an onslaught of criticism. But those who've cultivated a climate of respect, even if it borders on fear, often weather scandals more effectively because people know crossing them could come at a price. The next section brings these lessons right into our modern world, where power plays out in offices, social media, and everyday life in ways you never saw coming. Okay, let's bring it into the present. Corporate offices, all shiny and nice, right? Well, behind all that, there's always a low-key power game going on. CEOs and big bosses don't just get things done by being nice. They need to show they're in charge. It's like they're friendly and approachable, sure, but they also make it crystal clear who's running the show. They make calls, say what needs to be said, and sometimes do things people won't like. Basically, they're saying, I can be cool, but I can also be tough if I need to be. That mix of being understanding and being firm, it gets respect and keeps everyone knowing what's up. Leaders have to be able to be both kind and in control. It's how you get things done in today's business world. In politics, the same principle applies. Politicians who rely solely on popularity are often short-lived because popularity is ephemeral. One scandal, one headline, and you're toast. But those who command respect, or at least a cautious fear, manage to hold on to power longer. People may not love them, but they respect the consequences of stepping out of line. This isn't to say you have to rule your personal relationships with an iron fist. That's a guaranteed way to push people away. But if you're constantly worried about pleasing everyone, you'll lose yourself in the process. Setting firm boundaries and enforcing them shifts the dynamic. It's not about scaring your friends and family. It's about making sure they know you won't be a doormat. So now we're going to cover how to set some healthy boundaries. This helps make sure everyone respects you and doesn't try to walk all over you. Whether it's parenting, teaching, mentoring, or just respecting yourself, boundaries are key. They set the stage for how we interact and what we expect, making things run smoother and feel more predictable. Kids naturally test limits to figure things out. But if parents are wishy-washy with rules, it confuses kids and can cause trouble. Consistent boundaries make kids feel secure. They know what's up and what happens if they cross the line, which builds trust. Same goes for classrooms. Students need to know what's expected, behavior-wise and academically. Solid, consistent boundaries make for a good learning environment where everyone feels respected. Mentoring, clear boundaries define roles and keep the focus on the mentee's growth. Personally, setting boundaries is about self-respect. It's knowing your limits, saying no when needed, and making time for yourself. Bottom line, boundaries are vital for healthy relationships and personal well-being. No matter your role, clear boundaries are essential for a positive and fulfilling life. It's no different among adults. We need to understand where someone's line is drawn. That's what fosters genuine respect. If you've made it clear that you won't tolerate certain behaviors, people approach you with more caution and thoughtfulness. They value your presence because they know it's not guaranteed. And ironically, that environment can create healthier, more authentic connections in the long run. But how do you strike that balance between boundaries and compassion? It's simpler than you think. Be kind, but be firm. Offer empathy, but never let empathy become an excuse for someone to disrespect you. Compassion without backbone is just weakness waiting to be exploited. Don't be so concerned about being nice that you forget to be fair to yourself. Level up your boundaries. You know those boundaries you've set? There's a little something extra that can really make them pop. It's all about keeping things a bit intriguing. Stick around to see what that is. Another underrated tool in this conversation is unpredictability. Sounds a bit tricky, right? But here's the thing. If people know exactly how you'll react 100% of the time, they can manipulate you. Predictability can be comforting, but it can also be your Achilles heel, especially when someone wants to test or challenge you. When you keep an air of mystery, remaining calm when people expect you to rage, or speaking up sharply when people expect you to stay silent, you make it harder for others to box you in. It's not about playing mind games. It's about reminding people that they can't take you for granted. You're not a robot running on a script. They can't just press a button to get the reaction they want. All right, so here's the deal. Leaders who are really good at handling crazy, unpredictable situations. They often have a knack for controlling the story. People hang on their every word because there's always this sense of what's going to happen next. It keeps everyone on their toes. Of course, you can't be totally all over the place or people won't trust you, and being too predictable? Well, that makes you an easy target. It's all about finding that sweet spot, which means you need to know your stuff, both the strategic side and how people tick. You've got to be able to see what might happen and adjust on the fly, while still keeping a little bit of mystery. Maybe you're careful about what you say when you say it, or you just keep some decisions to yourself. This becomes super important when things are really hitting the fan or everything's changing fast. When nobody knows what's coming, they're looking for someone to lead the way. If you can stay cool and collected, even when things are wild, you'll earn people's trust. But you've got to be real with them. No messing around with the truth, or it'll all blow up in your face. Basically, playing the unpredictability card is about using it wisely. It's about making that uncertainty work for you while keeping everyone on your side. It's a tricky balance, but if you can get it right, it's a pretty powerful move. Next up, discover 2 surprising tactics, one light and one dark, that will redefine how people interact with you forever. Let's talk about 2 strategies that sound like polar opposites: praise and rivalry. So praise can be like money. If you throw it around too much, it loses its value. But if you use it wisely and point out specific things someone did well, it really motivates them. Saying "good job" is okay, but it's way better to say, "I loved how you handled that tough client," or "your attention to detail on this project was amazing." Also, people need to earn praise to really appreciate it. On the other hand, competition can also push people to do their best, but you got to make sure it doesn't get too cutthroat. The best leaders know when to praise and when to encourage some friendly competition to keep everyone motivated and working together. Rivals, on the other hand, are unavoidable. Even if you don't see them as rivals, someone likely sees you as competition. The trick is knowing who they are, even if they don't realize you've noticed them. Sometimes letting your rivals think they're winning can be a powerful move. They grow complacent, show their cards, and then when the time is right, you remind them exactly who holds the real influence. We often think of rival as a negative term, but competing can really get you moving and spark new ideas. It makes you push past what you thought you could do, get creative, and find better ways of doing things. Having someone to compete against can make you really focus and keep improving. Don't make the mistake of thinking your competition isn't a big deal. Anyone can come up with something unexpected. It's a good idea to not show all your cards. Keeping your plans to yourself can surprise people, and that can be a huge advantage. If everyone knows what you're going to do, they can get ready and maybe even beat you. Honestly, some good old competition can be a great push to do your best and reach your goals. Treat the people you're up against with respect, keep an eye on them, and don't spill all your secrets. That's how you can use competition to really succeed. But what happens when even the strongest leaders face a crushing storm? The next part of our journey takes you straight into the chaos of crisis. Here's a part people don't talk about enough. Real power can be lonely. Reaching the top? It's a lonely climb. As you get more powerful, fewer people get what you're dealing with. Your decisions impact tons of lives, and that's a heavy load. It's like being on a mountaintop. Amazing view, but freezing and you're all alone. Getting there is a rush, but staying there? Tough. You sacrifice personal time for the job, and the constant pressure messes with your head. Plus, it's easy to lose touch with the people your decisions affect when you're in that high-up world. You can start feeling detached, which isn't great. So, if you're in charge, make an effort to connect. Listen, chat, understand. Find people who've been there to advise you. Chasing power is tempting, but remember the downsides. Leadership loneliness is real. If you're aware of it and work on it, you'll handle things better. Why is it lonely? Because the more you display authority and firm boundaries, the fewer people will approach you with the usual casualness. Some might distance themselves, fearing they might step out of line. Others might only come around when they want something. True friends become harder to identify, and you learn to value the authentic connections you do have. The paradox is that this loneliness can also become your strength. It pushes you to make decisions based on logic and self-confidence rather than constant feedback from a crowd. In times of crisis or high-stakes moves, that solitude can be clarifying. There's less noise to cloud your judgment. And speaking of crisis, get ready, because the next section reveals how your response to disaster will either make or break your reputation. Let's talk about those moments where everything hits the fan. A big mistake at work, a sudden personal betrayal, or a chaotic family situation. How you handle a crisis is what cements your reputation. If you lose your cool or start panicking, everyone around you will sense it, and your authority drops immediately. But if you manage to stay composed, even when the ground is shaking beneath you, people take note. They might not love you for it, but they'll respect the calm leadership. Think of it like being the captain of a ship during a storm. The crew wants to see that you're steering confidently, not screaming at the waves. That composed energy is contagious, and it can literally turn a disaster into a manageable challenge. Of course, it's easier said than done. Staying calm requires practice, whether it's deep breathing, pausing before you speak, or having a clear plan for worst-case scenarios. But the payoff is huge. You'll earn a reputation as someone who keeps their head on straight when everyone else is losing theirs. But even crisis management is just part of the puzzle. Coming up, learn why discomfort is the price of real growth and how most people run from it. With all this talk of fear, respect, boundaries, and unpredictability, it's clear that embracing some level of discomfort is essential. True power isn't about living on a fluffy cloud. It's about being okay with tension and conflict when it's needed. If you avoid all confrontation just to stay comfortable, you'll find yourself sacrificing more and more until there's nothing left. History's greatest leaders, thinkers, and innovators often talk about leaning into discomfort. They accept that growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. They understand that sometimes you have to do the unpopular thing to protect your integrity or your vision. And that's where real respect grows, when people see that you don't fold under social or emotional pressure. The question is, are you willing to handle that friction? Because if you're not, the path to real respect becomes much harder. People sense weakness. They sense when someone is avoiding conflict at all costs. That's when boundaries slip. And that's when being loved starts feeling pretty empty. Up next, we'll apply these lessons to your closest relationships, where boundaries get tested the most. Don't miss this if you want genuine respect at home, too. It might be easy to apply these concepts to leadership or business, but what about personal relationships with friends, family, or significant others? The same principles apply, albeit with more nuance. You don't want your partner or best friend to be scared of you, obviously, but you do want them to respect you enough to avoid crossing certain lines. Boundaries in personal relationships might be as simple as stating what you will or won't tolerate. It could be how you expect to be spoken to or how you handle shared responsibilities. Consistency matters here more than anywhere else. If you say you won't tolerate disrespectful behavior, you have to follow through. Otherwise, your words become meaningless, and that disrespect will grow. Yes, there's a risk of losing people when you stand firm. But ask yourself, do you really want to keep people around if they only love you when you're bending to their will? Or if they're only comfortable with you when you're swallowing your needs to accommodate theirs? Real love and respect can coexist, but they rarely do so without clearly defined boundaries. If you thought a simple conversation was enough, think again. Our next section unpacks a tool so powerful, it doesn't require a single word. All right, we live in a world of constant chatter. Social media, instant messaging, 24/7 news cycles, it's an endless stream of words. One of the most potent strategies to gain and maintain respect is knowing when to shut up. Silence might feel awkward, but in that awkwardness lies power. Think about negotiations. The moment you pause and let the other person fill the void, you often gain valuable information. They might reveal more than they intended, or they might backtrack on their stance. Silence also shows you're not desperate to please. You're comfortable holding your position and letting them wonder what's going on in your head. Of course, too much silence can breed misunderstanding or fear. It's a balancing act. You want to cultivate an air of thoughtful restraint, not create a vacuum that pushes people away entirely. But the next time you're tempted to over-explain or justify yourself, try embracing silence. See how it changes the dynamic, and observe who gets uncomfortable first. Stay tuned, because next we'll dive into the art of genuine praise and why it's more powerful than any sweet talk you've heard before. Let's circle back to praise and how it can be a powerful form of positive reinforcement. If you dole out compliments every 5 minutes, those compliments lose their punch. People will start thinking, oh, you say that to everyone, or you're just being nice, but you don't really mean it. On the flip side, if you never praise anyone, you come across as a grump who can't acknowledge other people's efforts. The sweet spot is being genuine and deliberate. Reserve your praise for times when it really matters. When someone has done something noteworthy or gone above and beyond, make the compliment specific. You tackled that project with creativity and focus. Or, I really appreciate how you handled that conflict today. That way, your words become a kind of currency people actually value. They know you're not just flattering them, you're recognizing real achievement. But even the most skillful praise can be overshadowed by a lurking threat. Rivals. Up next, see how they can make or break your reign of respect. It doesn't matter if you're the friendliest person in the world. You will have rivals. Some are out in the open. Others might be quietly competing with you behind the scenes. The worst mistake you can make is ignoring the possibility that someone might be working against you. That doesn't mean you have to become paranoid, but a little healthy vigilance goes a long way. Sometimes letting a rival think they're edging you out is a smart move. People often get cocky when they think they're winning. They show their strategies or they slip up because they believe they've already got the upper hand. Then, when you do respond, strategically and decisively, they're caught off guard. But keep it classy. There's no need for petty drama or public feuds, unless, of course, your line of work thrives on that sort of attention. In most cases, a private, well-timed move is infinitely more effective than a loud, showy confrontation. The element of surprise is powerful. Coming up next, we'll confront the times that truly test your power, crisis moments where everything's on the line. Don't look away now. When everything goes wrong, a massive flop at work, betrayal by a close friend, or a scandal you never saw coming, how do you keep your head above water? The truth is, you can't fully prepare for every crisis, but you can prepare your mindset. If you've been practicing composure, setting boundaries, and maintaining respect, you're already in a better position. Crisis management is as much about optics as it is about problem solving. People watch to see if you crumble or if you stand tall. If you crumble, you give them permission to doubt you or walk away. If you remain resilient, you reinforce the idea that you're someone who can weather storms. That alone can salvage relationships, careers, or public image. People gravitate toward stability. If you can be that rock, they'll want to align themselves with you. But is crisis management the final frontier? Not quite. Up next, learn why facing loneliness head-on is the ultimate test of true leadership. Let's be real. Stepping into your power can be lonely, especially if you're transitioning from being the super nice person who never says no to someone who actually enforces boundaries. People might question your change in behavior. They might even resent you for not being as easily swayed or as available as before. But think of it as pruning a garden. You're cutting away the weeds and letting the healthy plants thrive. The relationships that matter will adapt. The ones that don't might fade away, and that's a good thing. You're making room for respect, authenticity, and genuine loyalty. Yes, it's a solitary road at times, but solitude can be incredibly freeing and empowering. And if you think you've seen it all, stick around, because next, we're diving deeper into the power of strategic silence and calculated moves that can redefine your influence. Keeping your cards close to your chest is a real game changer these days. We're so used to sharing everything, but honestly, it can backfire. When you play it cool and don't broadcast your every move, you avoid the naysayers and those who might try to derail you. This way, you can really pick up steam and make a bigger splash when you finally reveal your plans. Surprise can be your secret weapon, throwing people off balance and giving them less time to mess with you. So not every thought needs a public announcement. Sometimes flying under the radar is the smartest way to get things done. So think about it. In a world where everyone's shouting to be heard, the person who's quiet often gets the most respect. Why? It's like, if you don't talk all the time, when you do, people really listen. It makes what you say seem important. It's not about being shy, it's about being smart about when you speak up. Every word matters, so save them for when they'll actually count. Instead of always jumping in, show that you know when to listen and when to make your point. In a noisy room, the quiet one stands out. Silence says you're confident, thoughtful, and that you value your words. And when you finally speak, everyone pays attention. Plus, being quiet makes you a bit mysterious. People wonder what you're thinking, and that can actually make you more influential. Basically, silence builds anticipation, makes your words worth more, and creates intrigue. It takes some control to do, but the payoff, respect, influence, and power, is huge. Sometimes, in all the noise, the strongest move is to say nothing. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. Being nice matters a ton, too. I'm going to wrap this all up soon and show you how it all comes together into a really solid plan. Keep an eye out. Alright, so you might think this is all about being tough and scary, but that's not the point. What we're really after is finding that sweet spot between being nice and being strong. You can be kind, understanding, and actually care about people, while still setting boundaries and not letting anyone walk all over you. This is how you handle things with realness and respect for everyone, including yourself. Being nice doesn't mean you're a pushover. You can be a good person with solid values and still stand your ground. If you get this right, you'll have better relationships, feel better about yourself, and just overall feel more in control. It takes time, and you've got to know yourself to pull this off, but it's totally worth it. If you can nail both kindness and strength, you'll be a powerful person, someone who can lift others up while still taking care of your own needs and staying true to who you are. Some of the most respected individuals in history had a gentle side coupled with a steely resolve. They weren't tyrants. They were people who demanded respect through their actions and set boundaries that no one was allowed to cross. When you blend warmth with a backbone, you're basically unstoppable. People feel safe around you, yet they know better than to take advantage. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, the final plan that can rewire your entire approach to power, respect, and authentic relationships. So, what do you do with all this information? Ask yourself, do you really want to go through life chasing love that might vanish the moment you stop performing a certain role? Or do you want to cultivate respect that stands firm regardless of fleeting emotions? This doesn't mean you have to become cold or distant. It means you prioritize your self-worth and demand that others respect it too. When you do that, love, real love, often follows naturally. It's not forced, nor is it based on you sacrificing your entire sense of self. Here's your challenge. The next time you find yourself bending over backward just to be liked, pause. Ask if the situation calls for healthy assertiveness instead. Practice a moment of silence instead of rushing to fill the void. Offer meaningful praise instead of generic compliments. And if someone crosses a line, don't be afraid to stand your ground. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is where real growth begins. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button. If you're ready for more insights that challenge the status quo and push you to become a stronger version of yourself, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Let's keep this conversation going. Drop a comment below about a time you felt taken for granted or how you balanced kindness and respect in your own life. Remember, love is nice, but respect is powerful. And the most fulfilling place is somewhere in the middle, where you're both respected and genuinely cared for. Stay strong, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.